Hello, thank you for attending our webinar. My name is Nate Streeter, and Jody is here with me. Say hi, Jody.
Hello, everybody.
First, we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about ourselves so you know who the heck we are and who's presenting this webinar. Again, my name is Nate Streeter. I'm the owner of Paperboy Printing and Distribution. We're a flyer delivery company. We do a lot of marketing work with companies, direct mail and other services that way. I've been doing that for a little over 12 years and have helped, oh gosh, lots and lots and lots of businesses in the Twin Cities with their marketing. I guess my formal education, I have a degree in ministry and counseling from Northwestern College, so even though most of my work history is marketing, I guess my formal education is in ministry. My wife and I, we both grew up in North Minneapolis and still live here and really have a heart for this area, particularly for the kids here. So that's something that we're very interested in and will continue to be interested in. So that's a little bit about me. How about you, Jody?
Well, my name is Jody Holloway, and I am a sales rep for Paperboy, and I do have a diverse background working with different churches and businesses. I've worked a lot in I've worked in youth ministry. I hold my degree in youth ministry from North Central University. I've worked in churches. I've worked with delinquent teenage boys in group homes, volunteered with some drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. But again, I also have experience in the business industry with restaurants and mortgage marketing and in sales. So.
Sure. All right, so let's get right into it. Obviously, you got a postcard or an invitation from us or a phone call. I guess there's lots of different ways that we touch base with people, but there's really three things we were going to cover, right? What were they? The 5 biggest mistakes churches make, right?
That is correct.
And marketing messages sure to bring in visitors, so we're going to go over a bunch of different messages that they'll be able to use. And guerrilla marketing techniques proven to work. So actual, well, how do we get visitors and different people in our building?
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, so I'll let you take this one, Jody. Go for it.
All right, sounds great. Well, to start with, filling your church is obviously important, and the studies show that churches are going to grow to an 80% capacity. That's just the comfort level, and that's where people feel comfortable. Anything beyond 80%, people are starting to feel crowded, and so we understand that, but at the same time, there are a couple of times each year that your church should be hitting absolute maximum capacity. And the 2 times specifically are Christmas and Easter. Obviously, Easter is right around the corner, and so this webinar is designed to help you pastors and church leaders understand how marketing can work for your church this Easter to help you make sure that you're reaching the maximum capacity that your church can hold, and to find out just what the right kind of marketing is and how you can use that effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like a lawn care company. I mean, they've got, a 6-week window, let's say 6-8-week window, where they're going to be able to get most of their new customers during the year. And of course, we do a lot of those flyers in the spring. It's the same thing for churches in a lot of ways. Easter is a huge opportunity for them, and really, if they miss that opportunity, it's a shame, because there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be looking for a place to go that day. And that's really what we were going to talk about, is bring in new people to see what God's doing at your church and join the movement. The second thing is gain recognition in your community. So, not everybody who gets your postcard is going to come to your church, right? Or your ad or whatever you do. But being able to position your ministry within the community so that people know, who you are and what you're doing, and just like that bottom thing says, that you're alive and active as a ministry. Wouldn't you say, Jody?
I absolutely would. I think that a lot of people that are in the community don't necessarily understand what the church is and what the church does and what the church has to offer them. And part of the reason for that is because as pastors and church leaders, we've been trained in the Bible. We know everything about how to study the Bible and how to bring the Bible alive to people today, but we're not really taught the marketing, and we're not taught how to effectively reach the unchurched masses that are in our community with what we're doing and what we have to offer to them and what it is that the church is. So this is a great opportunity, even if it's somebody who doesn't come into your church or because of the flyer. At least they know that you're there. At least they see who you are, and they might understand one or more things that are coming down the pipe as far as what your church offers to the community that you're in.
Right. Exactly, and that's really the reason I switched the slide on you there, is because you're really getting into what our so we were going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes, and that really just leads directly into the first one, which is a lot of churches think marketing is wrong, and I know you have a lot to say about that. I mean, why don't you hit on that first one? I'll hit the second one.
Sounds great, Nate. Yeah, I guess I was kind of jumping the gun there a little bit. So
no, it's
the
perfect.
First thing. A lot of people think that churches, a lot of people in church think that marketing is wrong. They kind of feel like maybe it's contrary to what the church is about and what the church is supposed to be doing. And then they say, some of them feel like, hey, this is contrary to our mission as a church. But in reality, that's what the Great Commission was. It was go ye therefore into all the world, spread the news, spread the gospel. So how do we do that? How do we tell people that we exist? And in changing times, there's different ways to do that. So, so that's really the first part of it, is that no, this is not contrary to the mission of the church. This actually is the mission of the church. Some people think that marketing is just manipulation and pulling on heartstrings and tugging people one way or the other, or trying to tell them that what they need is what you need is what we have to provide. And in reality, isn't that what the church is about? The product, if you will, that a church has to sell is arguably the most important product that there is, because it's an eternal product. So Nate and I both feel passionately about that, having our background in ministry, and so it only makes sense that with the marketing company that we want to help churches to market what the church has to offer, which is not just a temporary product that's here and consumed and gone, but rather that it's something that is eternal, that people are going to take with them beyond this life into the next one. And then the last thing is that some people just think that they're just uncomfortable with marketing and they don't really understand it. And so because they don't understand it and what marketing is and how it works effectively and how to effectively use it, because they don't understand that, they're uncomfortable with it, they just avoid it completely. And that's a huge mistake that churches and pastors and church leaders make, because it's just counterproductive. It doesn't get anything done.
Well, and I think anybody who thinks that marketing is manipulation, honestly, I think there probably was a time period where marketing had a lot more power. And, that might have been the 50s or 60s or 70s, you might argue. But, for the most part, what marketing has really turned into and what it really always has been is just you sharing some kind of communication with people. And I agree with you 100% what you're saying. The church has a very important message and to share with people. And we'll go over all kinds of different possible messages later. But the truth is that I would, a lot of the reason we're doing this webinar is part of what we've seen and over the years in churches and what they sort of the mistakes they've made when it comes to this. And so that's a lot of what this comes out of. So let's get into the second one, which, we hear this in almost every industry, not just necessarily with churches, but so we hear this, we put out a direct mail invitation. 3 years ago, we went to 20,000 homes, and only one family showed up. And I've got to be a good steward of our money, and that was, in their mind, that was a waste of money. It's just not worth it. We spent thousands of dollars, and we got one new family. And so, you know, and in a lot of ways, well, what I've seen over the years is people just throw the baby out with the bathwater. They assume, well, either A, marketing doesn't work at all, B, postcard marketing or any kind of print advertising won't work for churches. I mean, they'll make conclusions based on one marketing piece that they did, and it's not right to do that. I mean, I've worked with, literally dozens of customers where they've had postcards or flyers or whatever that have completely flopped when they came to me. We redesigned their whole marketing, their pieces, the way they looked at it, and the response was completely different. So just the message that your postcard has or that whatever you're doing can make such a big difference. And so I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about being a good steward of the money, Jody? Because I know that was something that was important to you as well.
Absolutely. I think that when we're responsible to a people for their tithes and offerings, for the money that they give and they send into God's house, it's important that as church leaders we are responsible with that, and we do something that's going to be a good use of it. And so when we talk about that, marketing is one of those places where you're sowing a seed and you're going to reap a reward or a benefit from that later. So, yes, it does cost money. Yes, it is money up front that it's going to cost, but at the same time, what comes out of that, what grows because of that. So the seed planted comes to fruition later. And
right.
People don't sometimes see a lifetime value in what they're doing because they see the initial cost, and the lifetime value is not just the initial return on that. So even if you put out a flyer distribution to 20,000 homes and only one family showed up, the flyer distribution isn't the main method of bringing people into your church. That's just a way to get out a message and hit people at times when they're seeking that new church. The main message, the main way that people are going to come into your church is because of a personal invitation from somebody already in your church. Sure. So let's say that one family shows up and they, over the course of the next 5 years, invite 2 or 3 or 4 or more families as well. Yep. So a lot of times people fail to see that lifetime value.
I agree, and the thing, look, we've done pieces. I could bring up some numbers right now where and I think you've seen them, Jody, where we help a congregation bring in 80 new people, with a 20,000 piece flyer delivery. So,
sure.
Of course, I would say if we have a customer and they said, yeah, we did 20,000 flyers and only one family showed up, even okay, let's say lifetime value. So you bring in a new family to your church. I hate to bring out these numbers because I realize that it's not popular to be thinking like a business does, but let's just bring out the numbers. And let's say an average family, tithes $2,000-$3,000 a year. I know that some churches can be vastly higher than that, but and let's say you look at their average stay at a church, of several years, but usually you don't want to go out that far. So let's say 2 years. So that family might be worth $4,000 to $6,000 worth of giving to you. So, if you do bring in a handful of new families, like Jody was saying, not only do you have the value there and of course what the ministry, but there's, churches are huge referral engines. We work with lots of different kinds of businesses. Some businesses have huge percentages of referrals. Churches are definitely one of them. And so that one new family, you might bring in 5 new families. One of those families could bring you 3 more. You've got little Miss Beaver here who, she knows everybody in the community, and you've really made an impression on her, and all of a sudden she brings in 3 more. So anyway, the other thing is they don't always use it right away, and I think that was something you were going to mention.
Well, you're right. I was going to say that the other thing is that sometimes somebody will receive that flyer and they don't act on it right away, but they still have it. I'm actually sitting in my office and holding a mailer piece that was distributed to my house. I have a home church already, but this was a piece that looked sharp. It grabbed my attention, and I pulled it out of my my mail, out of the regular mail and stuff. I separated it out, and it's highly keepable. It's something that I've held on to because I don't even know why I held on to it. I have a home church, but it just grabbed my attention. And so if you have a highly keepable marketing piece, something that somebody is going to grab and they're going to pull aside, they could come back to that later on. And I've read stories of where other people have done that as well with a new church and a new church plant, and they're like, hey, you know what? Church is important to us, and we want to start going back to church like we were brought up in the church, and we want to go back. And they've taken that mailer that came, and they said, you know, when we go back, we're going to go to this one. And years later, they ended up seeing the church ended up seeing a result from the marketing piece that they had done several years prior.
I mean, and a lot of that is about positioning too. I mean, I've worked with so many businesses over the years where, you know, you'd be surprised. You could do 3-4 pieces over a year's period and really position yourself in a lot of people's minds. It doesn't seem like, you know, in my mind, I say, man, 3 or 4 different marketing pieces, that doesn't seem like enough. You might be surprised. I mean, you know, all of a sudden you've got one piece you did for Easter. You've got one that you did for a marriage classes that you're doing Wednesday night. You're doing one for something for the kids, you know, as soon as school starts. You're doing one for Christmas. All of a sudden there's a huge percentage of people in your community that view your church as an active church, that are doing things with families. I mean, it's amazing how you can position yourself with a little bit of marketing. And, you know, quite frankly, a lot of those people probably have negative views of the church and what they're doing. So in a lot of ways, you're repositioning their idea of what you're doing. And we'll talk more about that too, because some of the pieces that we would suggest kind of do a little bit more of that. Wouldn't you say, Jody?
Absolutely. We'll get into that a little more with the 10 plus things that are sure to bring visitors in. Let's move along to number 3, Nate.
Yeah.
Biggest mistakes is the marketing, the design of the marketing piece.
Right.
You touched on that a little bit in number 2, but really there's often an erroneous expectation that this marketing piece that we're sending out to 20,000 different homes in the vicinity, just a mile or two around our church, is going to bring in a bunch of unbelievers or a bunch of the non-church people. Yes, it's desirable, but it's not very probable. Right. It's not that the marketing piece is really designed to bring in the unbelievers as much as it's designed to bring in the people that already have a knowledge of their need to attend a church, to have a church home, to have a faith body that is able to support them. It's those people that are non-churched that know that they need a church that you're really reaching out to with a mailer like this. Yeah. So that's one of the things about the design of the piece. A lot of times it's designed with, you know, it just screams out, I'm for the Christians, I'm for those people that already believe. And really it needs to be designed a little differently. It needs to be designed to grab the attention of the people who, yeah, might believe, but they're not looking for church that same old way. They're looking for church in a way that's going to meet them where they are today. And so we need to be realistic about the expectation and the response that we expect to get out of it.
Right. I agree. And I think, you know, I've certainly sat down with many pastors and different people, and, you know, this is their outreach budget. I think you and I have joked about that before too, where, you know, really they don't have a marketing budget. They have an outreach budget, and which is fine, you know, whatever. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, it is. You are going to maybe bring, I guess the key is that most of the people that are going to visit your church would consider themselves Christians. Whether or not they're believers, you know, I don't want to split hairs about all that and get into a lot of it. But you don't want to have a piece that screams, oh, this is only for the pious people, you know, who've got it all together.
Exactly.
Or, you know, so I think that's the key. And, you know, part of that, too, is you have to be realistic about the response. You know, choosing a church is a pretty big option. You know, when we work with all these different companies, you know, when I work with a pizza company, that's not a big, you know, decision to make. You know, it's like, that looks kind of good. Let's try it, you know. But, you don't have that kind of nonchalant, cavalier attitude when you're picking a church. So how you present it, and you know, the fact is that you just have to be realistic about how many people might attend. And like I said, we've certainly done pieces, and you could talk to some pastors in the Twin Cities who've done business with us. You know, we've hit the ball out of the park in a whole bunch of areas. So, you know, that last point is huge. If it looks like a track, I mean, I think that's part of what we're getting into here too. Is you're not gonna put a piece out that's gonna somehow create Christians. You know, that's just not realistic. And I think most people would say tracks haven't worked for a long time.
Nate, I liked what you said there about, you know, we've hit the ball out of the park for some different pastors and churches that we've worked with already. And, you know, it's true. We hear the old adage that the best marketing is word of mouth. It's somebody saying, hey, you know, I went to this place and it was fantastic, or I used this service and they did a really, really good job. And I think that here at Paperboy, churches are one of our best as far as coming up and saying, hey, you know, talking to their pastor friends and saying, hey, you should look into Paperboy. They did a piece for us and it really worked well. We don't have lawn care companies that are going to other lawn care companies and saying, hey, you know what, Paperboy did a distribution for me, and man, they did a great job of bringing a bunch of new customers in for me. Well, but with the churches, we see that.
I mean, we do. I mean, obviously, just like any business, most of our business comes from referrals. That's the key. But you're right. The churches are good at referring. I mean, we get a lot of referrals from our church customers, and so, you know, we're happy about that. And so let's get into this next one. So I think this is the key, and I think this is where a lot of people miss. I mean, again, this isn't just churches. This is everything. You know, we work with everything from pizza to painting, you know, but the marketing piece has to be relevant. So, you know, there's a million, you know, we rate flyers. We have a whole system, 14 steps, where we bring the flyer through and we rate it 1 through 100, and we've been fairly accurate at being able to determine if a flyer or a postcard is going to work. But a lot of what we're really looking for is it going to be relevant? You know, what is it communicating in 5 seconds? I mean, what are, you know, and I know that sounds kind of crazy for churches, all these different marketing things that we're looking at, but the truth of the matter is it's still important. A lot of times churches don't really understand what their product is. And it's such a key, because you get what you aim for every time. So if you aim for too much, you usually will hit nothing. If you aim for nothing, well, I can guarantee you're going to hit nothing.
Right. You got to make sure that you're targeting the right, you know, I won't say clientele, but parishioners, your right church body. Some churches are designed to hit different, you know, different churches are designed to hit different audiences. There are contemporary services, there are traditional services. There are, you know, contemporary churches, and there are traditional churches, and whoever your body is, your piece needs to be designed to hit the right target audience. One of the things that oftentimes pastors struggle with is they misunderstand their role as far as what their role is in the church with marketing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times pastors are like, hey, it's not, the church isn't about me. It's not about me. It's about God. But they fail to see that they are God's creation, and God is using them in their unique personality, in their unique style, to reach a certain population that is designed to be reached by them. So
absolutely. Yep. I couldn't agree more.
All right, go ahead, Nate. You wanted to say something on that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I couldn't agree
you're good.
more. I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, what you're saying is part of what the church's product is the pastor. And I'm with you 100%. Absolutely. People feel so uncomfortable when you say that, and they say, oh, no, it's about God. And it is. You know, we're not trying to take anything away from that. But people leave churches when the pastor, you know, changes. People start going to churches when there's a different pastor. People have strong connections with leadership. And honestly, that isn't just in churches. It's in businesses. It's all over the place. So often I think it can be, you've seen lots of different postcards and different things that have been successful when it's just a simple invitation from the pastor. You say, well, how in the world? Well, you know what? A good invitation from a pastor that's clearly able to kind of do what Jody was just mentioning, kind of clearly communicate what his ministry is doing and what they're passionate about, that can be a killer piece that can have lots of response. So, you know, a lot of it is just understanding, just like any other business, what are you passionate about? What's unique about you? Why, you know, why would, you know, if you're at a cocktail party, what do you really want to say to someone about your church or about what you guys are doing in your ministry? You know, a lot of times that's what you want to communicate in your postcard. And again, it's no different from a business, really.
Well, I'll just sum that up by saying this, Nate, because a lot of times to the pastor, the church is about God, not about them. But to the congregation is saying, oh, I love my church. Pastor Tom is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Pastor Bill has a great humor about him. Whatever it is that they associate their church with the pastor. The pastor doesn't like that or doesn't want that because typically pastors are not the egotistical, self-centered individuals. They're the ones that are trying to point people towards God, but other people are recognizing their qualities and characteristics. So
yep.
Focus on that, on your unique style, what ministry your churches do, what you're passionate about, and then you'll get the kind of people that you're looking for your particular church.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we missed, I mean, I've seen so many church pieces that didn't work over the years, and, you know, they use stock photos, so people who aren't even from the church, and, you know, they've got this just sort of general Easter theme, or, you know, and we'll go into some more of this stuff in the future, but it's totally not this. It's not relevant. It's not unique. It's nothing, and then they wonder why it didn't work. So
that's
anyway,
a big mistake.
Yeah. So let's get into this fifth thing. You know, obviously there's lots of comparisons you can make, but the workout is certainly the same. I mean, and we've talked about it too. It's all about positioning. It's all about setting yourself up as, you know, because what you say about your church through your marketing and different events that you do is going to make people, that's what they're going to think about you. It's sort of like North Minneapolis. Lee and I, we live in North Minneapolis. We get so frustrated by the news. The only thing they ever talk about, you'd think if you come into North Minneapolis, you know, you're going to get shot. Because that's really what the news tells you. And it's crazy how many people actually think that. Well, I hate to say it, but it's somewhat the same as with your church. A lot of the people in your community are going to believe what they know about it. And you can actually play a role in that. But if you're not consistent, it's just like workouts. If you're not consistent, it's not going to do anything.
Absolutely. I think that inconsistent marketing is one of, if not the biggest church mistakes that churches make. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be something where people are seeing you, they're seeing you, they're seeing you, because then what's in their mind is, you know what, they're there. That person is there in my community, or that church is there in their community. And so, you know, how many of your visitors never came back because they came once and then they never heard from you again, or they only heard one or two things from you? You don't want to pester them, but at the same time, you want to constantly let them know that, hey, we're still here, we're still here, we're still here.
Right.
And then
because God knows they're not going to go to the visitor booth. A lot of them aren't. The visitor table you got at your church or the fellowship area, they're not going to fill out the little visitor card or whatever you got. So, you know, honestly, there's going to be people who are going to visit who, you know, if you didn't send out another postcard, they may never even come back. And that's really what you're kind of hitting on. I mean, your marketing can be very effective that way as well.
True, it can. The other thing that that is inconsistent in that is you need to, from time to time, reestablish what your UCAs are. In business, we would call them unique selling propositions, or USPs. In church marketing, I like to call them UCAs, unique church aspects. And so you want to put your unique church aspects back in front of the people that have been in your congregation, the people that have been in your doors. You want to let the people that have visited once before know that, hey, here's where we are, and this is what we provide. We provide a strong children's ministry. We provide marriage classes. We provide money and financial seminars that are going to help you to manage your finances well. You want to let them know what the unique aspects of your church are. We're passionate about missions, and we're doing what we can to change the face of the world as far as faith is concerned. So
Yep.
you want to reestablish that with the people that have visited your church previously so that they're seeing it. But then the other thing is that constant marketing not only reestablishes with those who have been to your church, but it energizes your base. It gives a drive and a hunger to your core congregation that says, you know what, this is what we're about. This is what we do at our church, and this is why it's important. And so when they get that piece on their doorstep that says, you know, their church's name on it, they get a little excited. They're like, yeah, we're out in our community making a difference in our community, and we're touching the lives of our neighbors and friends here.
Yep. And, you know, don't overestimate how well your current congregation can really talk about your ministry and really present those unique selling propositions or unique church attributes, because the truth is, just like businesses, they're going to have a difficult time really saying that stuff. And so it's so interesting how, in a sense, you're helping them. You're not only giving them tools to use and giving them messages to present to other people, but you're continuing to reinforce those things in their minds. And so, I could go on and on about that and how important that is. And it also helps. People tend to take what you are for granted, and it can help in major ways with that as well. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the other thing, kind of going back to that just for a second, is, obviously it's a big, important part is using the money wisely. I'll tell you what, you fire up your base, they get postcards in the mail, they see different things like this. Man, people feel better about giving to ministries that are active in the community and doing things like this. So it energizes people that way too. So
absolutely true, Nate. That's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's get into these messages.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's see what I got here. I got all kinds of them that I want to show you guys.
Nate's running the visual for you here, so while he's pulling up some different flyers and stuff that he wants to show you, these are not all flyers that necessarily Paperboy has put together. There's a ton of different things out there, but the first marketing message that's definitely going to bring visitors into your church is a personal invitation from the pastor.
Yep.
This is going to be a place where the pastor says, hey, you know what, I wanted to make sure that I invited everyone in the community out because this is who I am. I care. I care about the community. I care about you, and I want to make sure that you have a place to worship. It goes right back to the old adage that says they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah,
people need to know that.
Yep.
Go ahead, Nate.
I was just going to say, don't look past that too much, because if you just say, hey, I'm Pastor Erickson down at the church, we want you to come to our Easter services. Well, yeah, you and every other pastor within 3 miles. I mean, that kind of goes back to what we already talked about. I mean, you can't a personal invitation from the pastor, but really building on everything we've already talked about over the last 15 minutes. If you just do a sort of generic invitation, you're not going to get much there.
Absolutely. You've got to make sure that it expresses how much you care about the person. I think that's really where we were going with that. Right, Nate?
Yep. All right. So lots of these churches that we've done flyers for, in fact, will do specific events. So, they may have something. Can you see that, Jody?
Sure can.
Okay. So they might have an Easter concert. So they're really setting this up to look like an event that they're having. They might have, for Easter, often it's just that simple, where you really want to do something that looks like an event that you're having. I mean, depending on what kind of event. If you're having a big event for Easter, if you're not really having a big event for Easter, obviously that wouldn't be a good marketing strategy. But let's say everybody loves kids and wants to see them. If you're having a big thing with kids and that is a huge unique selling proposition for your church, or or unique. What did you call it, Jody? Unique church attribute.
Unique church aspect. Yep.
Yeah. If that's a big key for you, heck, I would. There's nothing that's going to scream, "Hey, we're a kid-friendly church," more than having a message like that has pictures of kids and showing. So here's one. If you guys are familiar with Outreach.com, have you heard the real Easter story? So this one isn't necessary. I mean, depending on how you treated the back of that, it could be really focusing on and positioning you as a more kid-friendly and family-friendly church.
Absolutely, and that's something that it grabs your attention. That marketing piece has got a cute little child on there, got the bunny ears flopping down. It definitely grabs your attention. And have you heard? Great pun with the ears, and of course with ears of that size you would have heard. But what is it that that grabs the attention? So now they flip over and you say, children's event at your community church or whatever your church's name is. Or, maybe you're doing an Easter egg hunt for the kids in your church, or whatever the case is. It's an opportunity to share with your community that, hey, we want to be a pillar in the community. We want to be an organization that the community knows is here to support them, to help them in the good times and in the bad times.
Right.
So that's the specific event flyer.
Yeah, and I think, look, I mean, we love Outreach.com, and they've got some good stuff here, but they've got some stuff that I don't think is going to work, to be quite honest. I mean, if you put out a piece that says Celebrate Easter, the hope of Easter, amazing love, and on the back all it really has is a date and time for people to come, I don't think it's likely you're going to get very many people to come. I mean, based on what I've seen with churches. I think this was one that you were mentioning, Jody, free Easter egg hunt. I mean, you can really push this. See, that's positioning yourself as a kind of fun, family-friendly church. That's really a lot different than something like this where you're just – I don't think there's any positioning there. So, I mean, it's just you're just not going to get very many people to respond to something like that. Now, these are professionally designed, just like everything that we do is professionally designed, but just because something's professionally designed, I mean, I love the way that looks. What movie does that look like it's from, Jody? I'm trying to pit. It must be some action movie.
Gosh, don't ask me on movies. I don't have time to watch them.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, that's a wonderfully designed piece, but quite honestly, who cares if it looks great if it doesn't really work? If it's really not positioning you well in the community, it's not bringing any visitors to your church. I'm not really interested in that. So, again, personal invitation, specific event, but it needs to be, helpful. We talked about focus on kids. It's such a major motivator for people to bring, to go to church. I mean, they've got that 2-year-old and that mom has just got this nagging feeling that she should be coming to church. And all of a sudden, here comes this print ad, this flyer, and, you're really building on something that's already inside of her.
And here's something that a lot of churches have seen is that people have gone to church until they get confirmed, and after they've been confirmed, a lot of people stop going to church. Yeah. And they stop until they get married and have kids. And when they have kids, they realize and they feel this guilt and go, oh, I really need to be bringing my children up in church. So they're looking, this generation, that this unchurched mass, and I do mean a mass, it is a horde of people who are unchurched. They were brought up in the church. They know the value of a church. They're unchurched because they reached that confirmation and they just kind of set it aside. And then they have kids. And when they have kids, they realize, oh, man, I really need to bring my kids up in the church. And so they're looking for that church that is kid-friendly. It is a huge motivator, and that might even be one of the marketing mistakes that churches make, is that they fail to focus on kids because of the horde of people that are looking for a church that's going to teach their kids the faith.
Well, and that's right. And I think, again, about positioning, I mean, if you can position your church to be relevant, and have some things that matter. I mean, hate to say, but that's probably partly why they stopped going to church is they weren't sure if it was really relevant anymore. So a lot of the ministries that we do flyers for are doing awesome work and really relevant work, and they just need to share that with the community. So this fourth one, you're going to see a lot of pieces like this. It's very difficult in my mind to do a good job of it, but it's possible. It's just people, I think the average American knows what the actual acts of Easter are, so this isn't as excited as you might get about it. They're not. So it's difficult to pull off, but possible.
I agree, and I think that it's all how it's done. Yep. It's, you know, they're not necessarily going to get excited about the acts of Easter unless you're excited and you convey it as exciting.
Exactly.
And when you convey the cross and what actually took place on the cross, yeah, it's fascinating. But unless it's presented right, it's not going to captivate people's attention. So
right.
It's sure to bring visitors in, but it's got to be done right, and you need the right team around you to make sure that that happens.
Yep, yep. And so, and exactly, so these 4 and 5, it's definitely possible if it's something that you're very passionate about. I agree. That's the message you want to go with. You know, this number 6 here, satisfy more than your sweet tooth this Easter, I think that really focuses on the cute aspect. You know, when we were looking at different pieces and coming up with some different things, you know, how you can create a situation where people feel comfortable in coming. So for some people, church might be a place that, you know, depending on what kind of background they come from, where people wear robes and there's organ music and everybody dresses up. And your church might not be like that at all. That might be an incredible message to present to them.
I really like this piece, Nate, because it says, hey, you know what? We just want you to come as you are. We're not looking to change you. We're not looking for you to feel uncomfortable. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to come just the way you are, which is how Christ calls us to come. And, you know, he's going to be the one that changes your heart. He's going to be the one that makes a change in you. Now, let me take a moment to say that if your church is the church where it's robes and you dress up and you have the organ music, we're not downplaying that at all.
No.
There's a percentage of the population that is looking for that church also. Different
Absolutely.
People have different styles, so you want to make sure that you're picking the correct message that's going to bring people into your church. This message here that you're looking at, no robes, no organs, and you definitely don't have to dress up, that's going to bring people in to certain churches.
Right.
Now, if that's your church and you're looking at it going, yeah, but we do have robes and we do have organs, that's not going to bring people into our church. No, you're going to use a different piece. You're going to use a different message for your church, and that's perfectly fine also.
Absolutely.
So I don't want it to come across like we're downplaying any one style. Or
I mean, just imagine what I always tell you, Jody. The thing is, if I only can talk to someone via email, I'm going to, you know, you get a couple minutes. I can't learn anything about a business, you know, via email, hardly. If I talk to someone on the phone, they'll usually give me 6 to 12 minutes, you know, and we can talk a little bit. But even then, I really can't understand what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, what their business is really about, and what's unique about them, or in ministry in this case. But if I meet with them face to face, they'll almost always give me 30 to 60 minutes. And sometimes I'm trying to get out of there and they still want to have the meeting. So, you know, but the thing is, if I meet with someone like today, I met with someone for 60 minutes. I mean, I know without a doubt I can just kill it for his business, because in that 60 minutes I can learn what he's passionate about, what he is doing compared to his competitors. You know, it's the same thing for us. So I guess I'm just telling you this. You know, if you feel like you're really not sure what's unique about your ministry, or what, you know, some of those things are, meet with one of us, meet with Jody or I. We'd love to meet with you in the next couple weeks and help you flesh that out. I mean, that's really what we're good at, is helping businesses understand, you know, what is unique about them. And you're right. I mean, not everybody this isn't the right message for. If you have a church with robe and organs, you know, you might be, heck, especially in North Minneapolis, for instance, the Catholic churches are often the ones that are doing the best work from what I've seen. But they have all kinds of fantastic messages as far as that they could, you know, that they could present and be very real and have a tremendous response from. So don't think you have to have that prototypical evangelical contemporary church to have an effective marketing campaign. That nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. I think that's great, Nate. Let's move on to number 7 here. Focus on the hope and the purpose of your church. Let's just touch on that for a minute. People need to understand that your church provides them with something. Your church provides them with hope. It provides them with a reason to be involved in your church and in the ministry that your church provides. So give them something, give them a place where they belong, give them a place where they feel like they're making a difference, where they can have an effect, and they're going to desire to be there. So you send out a marketing message that clearly communicates that, hey, what we need is we need you to come and be a part of this team. People want to be a part of the team. They want to be needed. They want to be desired. So when you show them how they're going to be used in your ministry and how their role could be essential, then they're going to just desire to be a part of that. They're going to want to seek you out. They're going to want to come.
Yep. And I mean, I don't know if I've ever told, I think I've told you this story, Jody, but you know, when I became a Christian, I didn't grow up in the church at all. I mean, my parents didn't go to church, and you know, I grew up in the inner city. So, you know, I started going to the church. It was a couple blocks from my house. They had girls there. They had free food, and they had games. That was all I needed to go, you know. But the truth of the matter is I went there for that reason, and of course with kids it's a little different. But the thing is that I kept going there and really became a Christian because I saw people whose lives were being changed there. You know, I saw drug addicts that had, you know, whose lives were changed, and I saw people who had been in prison who had really turned their life around. So if that's a big part of your ministry and a lot of what you're doing as far as renewal and restoration, and you have lots of stuff. I mean, we talk about it with a lot of our customers, social proof, and really showing, you know, social proof is really answering the question, well, who's done business with you? Why should I trust you? And churches can use social proof just exactly the same way. And a lot of it is just that. I mean, how is this affecting people? How is it working? And that's really a lot of how these couple work is, you know, what is this? And why should I care about it? Let's get into the next one here. Oh, this is one that Jody, you're going to have to slow me down because I bet I could talk for over an hour just on this number 9.
I bet you could, Nate. Oh, boy. Break barriers first and share Jesus second. Nate is very, very passionate about this, and he likes to talk about Donald Miller because he likes Donald Miller's style. He likes the way Donald says, hey, you know what? I'm going to confront head-on the image that people have of the church. Oftentimes people have a negative image of the church, and so they, you know, the church is just about getting my money. So if you were to put out a piece that said, you know, come to our church and leave your wallet at home. Yep. That says right away, it confronts the image that people have, and so it confronts the image that people have of the church just wanting their money. Right. And so that addresses the problem first, and then it says, hey, we're gonna you know, break that barrier, and then we're going to come around and we're going to share Jesus with you. Yeah, I mean, Quest. What is it? What did Quest just turn into? What's their new name now? I can never remember. CenturyLink. Does that sound right? CenturyLink, yeah. Yeah, okay. So they're actually, I feel like that's one thing they're doing a good job about right now. We talk about this with lots of customers. If you're in an industry where potential barriers are huge for people to purchase, I know, again, I don't want to make churches sound like a business, but the truth is lots of people in your community have huge barriers to coming and being part of your ministry. And anyway, back to CenturyLink. One of the big barriers in their industry is this bait and switch that's happened where people sign up for a $19.99 internet deal, and then all of a sudden, you know, 6 months later it's $49.99. And so now you can see a lot of their ads are really confronting that barrier head on. Your price isn't going to change for at least 5 years. I don't know if you've seen those ads, Jody, but that's really what they're doing.
They're confronting that barrier, and lots of our customers do that too. I mean, there's a million examples I could give, but if you're in an industry like churches where it's huge. So this piece that I've got in front of you, I like the one that you mentioned. What was it? The money
leave your
one.
Wallet at home.
Yep.
I said, leave your wallet at home. Come to our church.
Yeah, the money one's big. Another one, lots of people have been hurt by churches. That's why Donald Miller's a good example. He's got things in his books that I like, and examples of, if you start opening up to admitting, so we've got this piece here. We screwed up and we're sorry. Okay, you're pulling on a little bit of curiosity here, and you might just list on the back here what you're sorry for, for televangelists and neglecting the poor and being judgmental, and just generally misrepresenting Jesus. I mean, I can guarantee a piece like this, there's going to be a percentage of the population that this will really seem very authentic, or it could. Heck, this is a big, you could see this as just a little quick mock-up, because you definitely don't want to put together any kind of advertising that doesn't have your website. Phone is actually not as important as it ever once was. Your website's more important than anything, because I can guarantee from what we've seen working with churches, a huge percentage of people are going to go to your website to kind of check you out a little bit. So make sure you got that website, and make sure you've got somewhere for these people to land.
Absolutely, and with that website, I'd just like to say, kudos to many of you pastors out there. A lot of you are really understanding the importance of the website, and you're making an investment to make sure that your website looks good and looks welcoming, and it's catchy, and it's visually appealing when somebody goes to it. One of the worst things is when you go to a church website and it's just dry, or it's bland, or it's a really cheesy setup that's just like hey, yeah, we have a web presence, but you want to make sure that website is something that's going to be captivating of people's attention. So
yeah, and I would say, even going on that further, kind of all what we've talked about for the last 50 minutes or so, if your website doesn't scream who you are, what you're about, what you're passionate about, who goes to your church, those are questions, everybody wants to have 18,000 buttons and options. Honestly, I'm not sure half that stuff even matters, especially from a visitor's standpoint. Who you are, what you're passionate about. In a lot of ways, the landing page on your website is like a flyer that way. You've got to be able to communicate something in 5 seconds, and if you don't, you sort of fail. This piece that I just brought up isn't really necessarily one that I wanted to go over. There's a piece that's been running around on the internet that has a guy with, I think it's like his tattooed arm, that a pastor did, and it just said, guys like this go to our church, or I can't remember exactly what the headline was.
All are welcome here.
Yeah, the church that did that piece just got a tremendous amount of response. It's the same thing. You're breaking down some of those barriers of what people think is the kind of people that go to church. If in their mind they think, oh, I'm not the kind of person who goes to church, I ride a Harley, or I do this, or I do that. I mean, whatever they construct in their mind, your marketing can really deconstruct some of that. And so a lot of churches have seen success with that.
Right on. Let's move in just to the last couple here. Number 10, we were just saying that all are welcome here. You put a crazy image like you looking at me, like Nate just had up, and basically it says that, hey, you know what? Even if you don't look at yourself as the type that goes to church, you're very welcome here in our community. Number 11 is talking about the message series that everyone needs. So whether you want to talk about family relationships, whether you want to do a message series on money, whatever the message series that you're dealing with at the time, marriage and that kind of stuff, you want to make sure that you're communicating that, hey, we've got this. You can see Dave Ramsey there with
and this
normal is broke, be weird.
Yeah.
It's a great picture. It's got Dave with a 18-inch scissor cutting up the credit cards, and it's grabbing your attention. It's saying, "Hey, normal is broke. Let's be weird. Come to our church and have a total money makeover." Sorry, I'm plugging Dave there, but at the same time, At the same time, it's a marketing message that says, hey, you need to come out because we are going to have a real life change in your life, and it's something that is going to be valuable to you, not just spiritually, but physically here as well.
Yep.
So, Nate, let's move along. We only have a few minutes left with these good people.
And, you know, I feel bad because we really didn't mention, you know, within these webinars, they do have the feature to be able to ask us questions. Please ask questions if you do have them. If we can't answer them now, we will be able to answer them via email or phone call after the webinar is over. So don't worry. Any question is welcome. You can ask anything about us personally or about marketing. We'd love to help you with that. And so just let us know. And even in this little box here that you guys have where you can ask questions, and we'll do our best to compile all those questions and email everybody who went to the webinar, so you can also see other people's questions if they're appropriate.
Absolutely,
they'd be appropriate.
Or at least the best questions,
exactly.
Really powerful ones that we think deserve an answer that other people might have. So,
yep.
So Nate, people might be asking, so what now? What do we do? How do we go on?
Yep.
Or how do we do this thing? Let's talk quickly about the power of multiple different angles.
Yep.
And how marketing different avenues can be helpful for churches.
Well, I think churches somehow don't think of themselves like a business, but in a lot of ways they are. And this is just like every business we work with, where they have to be doing a lot of different things to have success. And you know, community events are part of it. Targeting new movers in different areas like that, where you're, you know, you've got people moving into your area and they're often looking for a church. And so, you know, of course, postcards is a lot of what we do. I mean, our main business is door-to-door flyer delivery. We are the largest flyer delivery service in the Twin Cities, and not to brag, but we are definitely the best flyer delivery service in the Twin Cities. I mean, it's not even close. So postcards and flyers have proven to be effective for lots of our customers and across the country too. So, but we do recommend you do other things besides postcards. I mean, that's what a lot of these other things are, and it depends on what you're excited about. I mean, if you've got a sermon series you guys are excited about, a marriage class, a money class, you're excited about Christmas. I mean, we certainly do a lot of marketing for churches at Christmas. I mean, what is it that you want to share with the community? And that's part of what you got to do, is you got to hit them in a variety of different ways.
Absolutely. The power of the multiple angles is, you know, really what we're talking about when we talk about the guerrilla marketing techniques. It's just the manual combat. Door to door is one aspect of it. Making the phone calls might be another aspect of it, or having the personal invitations from people in your congregation. You know, if you send out a postcard, that's one thing. But if you send out a postcard and then your congregation members go to their neighbors and say, hey, did you get the postcard that my church put on your doorknob? Yeah. Now you've not just attacked them from one angle, you've not just hit them with a marketing piece from one angle, but you've hit them from another angle. I experienced the same thing. I made some phone calls. I wasn't able to call all churches, but I made some phone calls to churches saying, hey, you know, we've got a webinar coming up that's going to talk about these things. And time again, I heard, oh, I think I got a postcard from you. And so that just, my phone call reestablished what that postcard was about. And so some people that got that postcard said, oh, yeah, you know what, I had done this with it, but I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'm going to pull it out. And so I'm going to take a second look at it, because now I'm hearing about it a second time. So those multiple angles really make a huge difference.
I agree. And you know, we've talked about all the different things. I mean, to give you, you know, often for churches, we're doing 10 to 20,000 flyers. That's common. You know, like you talked about, Jody, that brings you, often we're going to do a drop around their church. So, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 miles from their church, just depending on the situation. And so we're often doing an 8.5 by 5.5 piece, and you know, so I mean, those are some of the quick questions. But I mean, we'd obviously love to talk to you more about details and more about your specific situation and how we can help you. So make sure to ask those questions, email us, contact us, because we're excited to help you in whatever way we can.
Absolutely. I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time in attending this webinar, and we'll be in touch with each of you just to follow up and say what did you think, what can we do better next time, and we really appreciate you taking your time and spending it with us here.
Yep. Thanks so much.